Dr. Richard Proctor, and we have him live and in color here with us today. Everybody, please welcome Dr. Proctor.
Hi.
There he is.
Here I am.
All right, there he is. You thought he was just a voice talking out of the darkness. Here we got the real living Dr. Proctor, the Dean of Provis Institute. I hear you guys got a really good basketball team. Is that true?
Oh, yes. There's four or five 12-foot high guys. Yeah. Good shape.
And you have co-ed dorms and
all the things that are fun, all the stuff fun.
Oh, thank you. I think I'd like to go. Can I sign up? Am I too old?
They don't let old fogies like you and I there. Just young,
okay.
young 20-year-olds.
All right, awesome. Well, we are looking now at Dr. Proctor's in Utah. I am in Hawaii. And I'm trying to play a little bit of Hawaii behind me there. That's Sunset Beach there on the North Shore showing behind me. And I am very much interested to ask your opinion, Dr. Proctor, on the First Amendment to the Constitution. And I have your very excellent book. I have it right here somewhere, Saving the Constitution. I'll get that in a second, but I want to ask you, please, what is it about the First Amendment that we are missing? I think it talks about free speech, and what part of free speech are we missing here?
All of it. We're missing all of them of the First Amendment. All of it. We could just mark it out with a red pencil. It's all gone, every bit. No law respecting the establishment of a religion. Well, we all have 503Cs. That's a law. Prohibiting the free practice thereof. 503s are told what to do and what they can teach. Prohibiting abridging the freedom of speech. We're not allowed to talk. Look at all the people that have been cutting us off. Don't allow us to talk. Press hasn't been free since 1920. The right of the people to peaceably assemble. Nope, that's not been allowed. That's been cut out by COVID and that garbage. The petition the government for redress, that's all gone. You can't ask the government, can't do any of this. We do not have a First Amendment at all, not one piece of it.
So how do we get it back? Or can we get it back?
Well, there's only two ways. We all get together and insist that the government be better. That's like asking water to flow uphill. Or we have a revolution of some sort. That the Declaration of Independence is very clear about what that says about that. It says, and I will read it again. I like to read it right here in the spot right here. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay, those are our inalienable rights. Whenever any form of government becomes destructive of those ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish that government and put a new one in its place. Okay, that's the other step to get our Fifth Amendment rights back. And you know, Ted, I think those are the only two steps. This government has got to be altered or abolished.
Well, I have to agree with you. I happen to have right here, I have this old piece of parchment that a friend of mine got in Philadelphia back last summer when he was working there. And I don't know if he got it out of the rubbish can or what. I guess they must have thrown it away somewhere, but it says it says exactly what you were saying, and it says something else. It says the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America, and that's signed in Congress July 4, 1776.
Gotta be careful with that word, that sentence you just said. Unanimous declaration of all 13 states of the United States of America. There was no United States of America until 1788.
Yeah. So this is what's missing is we don't seem to be anything united about us. We don't seem to be anything of America about us, and we don't seem to have any independence anymore. So
those are all true statements, every one of them. Yes.
So where did we go wrong?
Oh, we the people forgot that we were supposed to pay attention and make sure the government followed the rules. For example, it took all of 18 months before we violated the first rule of the Constitution. 18 months. 1788 was the ratification, and 1790 was the first year we allowed the government to regulate what the Constitution didn't say. And they eliminated the number of representatives in Congress. We did not have the right number of representatives in Congress. The Constitution says 30,000 per representative, 30,000 people, and now we're at 800. And you see, you got to remember this stuff. During the Philadelphia Convention, there were Federalists and Anti-Federalists. Now, what's the difference between them? Federalists wanted big, strong, powerful government. Anti-Federalists wanted powerful states. And one of the breaking points of the convention, almost destroyed the convention completely, was how many people would each state have in the House of Representatives. And that number battered back and forth. The little states wanted a small number so they could have more representation. The big states wanted a big number so they would have more representation. And they couldn't come together. The last week, one of the guys said, let's do 30,000. They agreed. But in 1790, the powerful guys in the federal government turned it on its head and changed it to 50,000, which was the number not acceptable by the Anti-Federalists, or the people who wanted powerful states, or the people who were constitutional. Anti-Federalists were constitutional, Bill of Rights. The Federalists were throw away the Bill of Rights, let's have ourselves a strong federal government. Now that's what was going on. And you notice today everybody studies the Federalist Papers, and almost nobody studies the Anti-Federalist Papers. It's all the same stuff, you guys. It's all the same stuff. We're pushed a certain direction all the time.
And who would be the Anti-Federalists today?
Today?
Yeah.
I would have to say only the conservatives like you and I and people who want to get back to the Constitution. Everybody else is a Federalist that wants to throw the Constitution out and have a big, powerful government.
Okay. Now, have you heard of a man named Leland Spooner? Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't.
Well, a friend told me about him. He was born in 1808, and he was more or less sort of the father of libertarianism thinking. And he was an attorney, but he actually practiced law against the rule of a college education. But Leland Spooner has some very, very tremendous, what should I say, manifestos and letters he's written about the Constitution. He's a man thinking very much like we do, but he didn't accept actually that a government can force people to do anything. You know, he believed in the natural law, that we're born with natural rights. The government doesn't give them to us. And we create the government, and therefore the government can't create our rights or lord them over us. But here's the big one I think you might appreciate. He wrote a letter in his last writing in old age. He wrote a letter to Grover Cleveland on his inauguration saying what a farce it was, that all the things he had promised to swear and uphold to were not true because it was all done by force, and that government only is to exist by consent of the governed. And that is in the Declaration about the consent of the governed. It seems we don't have the consent anymore. But what I'd like to ask you, why is it that the president has to take this oath of office on January 20th to swear and uphold the Constitution? And then he has already announced he intends, this one particular one, JB, his initial, if he becomes the president, he says he's immediately going to go and start writing executive orders and proclamations as if he were a king. How is it he swears one day to uphold the Constitution and an hour later he's become a king? And could you just elaborate on that? I don't understand that part.
Me too. every one of our politicians, better not say everyone, there might be one in the House, Senate, and the executive department and the judicial. There might be one that is honoring the Constitution. There might be one. The rest of them are throwing it under the bus. They do that oath of office because that's what it says in the Constitution to do. They have no intention of following it. And I do not agree with your young gentleman of the 1800s that says we don't have a Constitution, because that's force, not consent. The Constitution is consent of the people. It was ratified by the people. In fact, some of the states said they would not do it if you didn't put a Bill of Rights in there. That's why there's a Bill of Rights. It was by the consent of the people, and it continues to be by the consent of the people. It's the politicians that lie and cheat and steal. So don't throw something under the bus because people are lying and cheating and stealing that allows us to have our rights. Don't throw that under the bus just because the users of it lie. We elect the users. We elect the incumbents over and over again. They didn't stop lying ever. So it's not the fault of the politicians either. It's the fault of us not paying any attention. Or it's the fault of the election process. It's stealing it out from underneath us every time it's done. I don't know the answers to all those questions, but we, the people, are the consent, and we gave our consent to the Constitution, and it is the supreme law of the land. So a guy can say whatever he wants. That isn't true. It is the law of the land, and we did give our consent to it.
Okay, so that's why we have 25,000 troops there to enforce our consent upon us.
Oh, I surely hope that's what they're there for to do. I would like that to be.
Would you? All right. Well, let's jump to the modern day. Would you give us some perspective? What do you think is going on, and what do you think is going to happen day after tomorrow?
Oh, you have all kinds of questions tied up in one. When I try to answer one, there's four more behind it.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Let's start with, what do I think is going to happen on the 20th of January? We're either going to have a sham an inauguration, or Trump's going to be there and take over. One or the other. And I don't think there's any other line.
You had mentioned CGI. We had talked a little bit earlier.
Let's just talk about that a little bit. Trump has not been able to get on any media, any broadcast, anything. He's not been able to say one word about anything since the 6th. They've kept him tied up and off of anything. So, and they brag about it, and they point it out. So we think to ourselves, here we have a group of people denying the president access to the people he represents. That's treasonous. That's just treasonous. There's no doubt about that. That's treasonous, sedition. I don't care what you want to call it. All the people who are doing that are violating the people, the rights of the people. They're the people we need to alter or abolish, those that are denying our rights. Now, we've seen some things that allegedly were Trump. I'm wondering, did it really happen? You know, those computer guys in Hollywood, they can really make things happen. You can see science fiction shows today that look like they're absolutely true. I mean, it's done, you guys. They can make things look perfect. So I don't know, but we've had 2 CGI events already. One on the 7th, right after the election, and one on the 20th. I guess it was Sunday. No, it wasn't yesterday. Sunday last week. I don't know. I think there's been 2 of them already. Mm-hmm. I don't know if there has or hasn't been. I know that Trump can't talk to the people. Trump's not getting out to the people at all. Can't say a thing. So how come he can sometimes and he can't others? So I worry about that. I also look at these troops that are in Washington, D.C. What are they there for? Now, ostensibly, they're there to make sure that the rioters don't riot down and tear up the inauguration. Folks, were the rioters the conservatives that were going to tear up the Capitol building on the 6th? No, they weren't. They were the Black Lives Matter and the Antifa dudes and these criminals that go around rioting anytime they don't get their way. They're like little children, 2 years old, bawling and yelling and screaming in the grocery store because they can't get a candy bar or a balloon or something. It's just exactly that. Okay, those are the dudes that were mashing in the building. Those are the dudes that were tearing all the stuff up. But it was done really carefully so that the media and the liars, the stealers, the cheaters could blame it on Trump's group and blame Trump for it. Well, it's not Trump's fault that that occurred. It was planned. Those people were bussed in, escorted by the police of the city of Washington, D.C., to ensure that there were problems like that to occur. And then the mayor went to the Pentagon and said, please come and help us. And they said, no, I don't think so. And that's all that happened. The only ones they had there were the planned BLM. I hate to use that term because that's an organization that's unconstitutional, but it's not bad. Anyway, see, so Black Lives Matter and Antifa were there to destroy, and they were the ones that were doing it. And the military didn't come to do anything. And our military, the real guys. So now let's think for a minute. Since it was Antifa that did it, and Antifa didn't have but about 2 busloads or less, maybe 3, I don't know. Anyway, they didn't have hundreds of people there. Why do we have between 15 and 21,000 troops in Washington, D.C. today?
Tell me, please. Why?
Let's just speculate a little. Let's assume that the bad guys wanted to have something to show that they expected the conservative people, us guys, to come in and try to destroy the inauguration. They're going to come and try to destroy it. So let's bring some troops in. 20,000? Even 15,000? I would have expected them to bring in, I don't know, 200 or 300, maybe 400 or 500. Okay, 15,000? I speculate. This is speculation. Don't get me wrong. I'm only speculating that they did bring in a few, 1,000 or 2. But Trump and the military, the proper guys, took advantage of the fact they were there and brought more in so they'd have some there to do what they wanted done. Now that's an interesting thought. I don't know if it's true, but it comes to my mind. It's an idea. Those troops are there not to stop the conservatives, but to arrest the bad guys. Just a thought. I don't know, but it sure would fit the pattern of what's been going on. 3 busloads destroyed the Capitol, and now there's 15,000 to protect it. I don't see the relationship there. They only brought in 3 busloads or 4 busloads or 5 or 6 or whatever it was to destroy during that time and try to get the good guys to destroy. They didn't succeed in that, but they tried. Just think about that for a minute. Now they have 15,000. Maybe they have 15,000 for a different purpose. I don't know. Everybody says Trump's not doing anything. Why doesn't he come out and do anything? Well, how did all the ships, how did the naval ships get stationed around the coast, which have been there for, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks now? They've been there. What are they there for? I don't see any foe from any place else. What are they there for? I hear about Chinese up in Canada getting ready to come on in and get us. Well, I don't see any boats from China out in the ocean to come and get us. At least I don't hear about it. And we would hear about it if they were there, I believe. So these are United States vessels, United States naval vessels, been patrolling the coast. Why? What for? They think we're going to run? Do you think that Ted and I are going to get a whole bunch of people and flee the country? I don't understand that. I think to myself, there's another purpose. And it's being placed there. We say Trump's not doing anything, but maybe he's been doing a lot of stuff. I don't know. I'm not going to say he has, but I speculate if he has the naval forces in place, I'll bet he has military forces in place. How many people do you think he could bring in military forces to all the military bases without anybody but the military knowing they're there? Think on that for a moment. Plane loads could be brought in, just like they did the blockade of East Berlin or West Berlin, the blockade of West Berlin. They brought in enough food and everything to take care of those people for several years. Plane after plane after plane. Well, you wouldn't have to do that, but I'll bet they could fly in a lot of people on those cargo planes and drop everybody off at all the bases, Air Force bases. Okay, I don't know what's been going on. I can't say anything, for sure, but I could sure see ways that it could be done, and we wouldn't know about it. Remember, the media is not telling us anything they don't want us to know, and Trump's not telling us anything because they don't want him to talk to us. So maybe he's been placing troops all over the country, and we don't know about it. Let's stop blaming Trump for not doing something. Let's just sit back and see if something doesn't occur. Now, what if it doesn't occur today, tomorrow, or Wednesday? Does that mean that ball game's over? No, it doesn't. Trump signed, I am positive, okay, positive, he signed the Insurrection Act of 1807. The minute he signed that act, he and the military took over the country. You could call it a dictatorship. That's okay, I don't mind. You could call it a dictatorship. They took over. That means that everything that's being done is a sham. Everything that the guys that are criminals are doing is a sham. So if there's an inauguration on the 20th for Biden, you be very careful. Is it a CGI and they just put it all together again? Have we seen any evidence of Biden anywhere for the last several weeks? Anywhere? You know, the Russians, they have people that you don't see. You find out they died 6 months ago. I don't know. I'm not saying anything like that's going on. I'm just saying those are things that happen in some of our dictatorships, in some of the places where the media is clamped down and they don't tell the truth. And we have one of those that doesn't tell the truth. You can be sure that anything the media says, the ABC, CBS, and all those dudes, when you see their mouths moving, they're lying to you. Just be sure of that. They're lying to you when their mouths are moving. Just like when Bush said he's going to do this, that, and the other. It was Father Bush. And he said, watch my lips. And we did. And he was lying to us every time he spoke. Not every time, but all the time. Mm-hmm. If you want to know whether somebody's for something or not, these people, the media, all you got to do is look at what they're fighting against. And that's what we want. What they're fighting against. That's what we want. So guys, let's not crucify Trump. Let's let him do what he needs to do and have our support ready for him when he needs it.
Yes, amen, amen. Thank you for that encouragement. You know, in the absence of news, people get desperate. I think this was, you know, we've seen that in World War II and blackouts, and then, you know, Soviet bloc, Eastern Europe. And Voice of America, you probably remember that Voice of America was a broadcast to Eastern Europe. And Pompeo was on there a few days ago with the Voice of America, their big conference. And he was indicating some things sounding like there was hope about this transition to go through. But we don't have any freedom of speech. We don't have any way for the president really to talk to us right now, do we? How would he talk to us?
Well, he'd have to talk to us on the emergency broadcasting system if the media would even let that go. Communication people would even let that. I'm not sure there's any way he could talk to us except through military channels at this point. Now, I've listened to the Secretary of State, Pompeo. I've listened to him a couple of times, and he always says things like, remember the art of the deal, remember that he lets the bad guys think that he's losing until he pounces on them. Remember the art of war from that dude in China. Art of war is to make your enemy think that you're given up, you've had it. And then they pounce on him. That's the kind of stuff that's done by people who are strategically placing forces, strategically doing stuff. Folks, don't give it to him. He's not. We've got to notice something very important. Trump cannot tell us what he's going to do. He cannot tell us. Okay? It's not a matter of we can't hear from him. He can't tell us what he's going to do.
Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
If he were to tell us, let's just assume something. The Supreme Court violated their mandate. They wouldn't listen to Texas. I mean, that was their responsibility. It's right in Article 3, Section 2, Paragraph 1. I believe that's exactly where it is. I wish there weren't so many paragraphs and sections that are similar, but here we are. Paragraph 2 Article 3, paragraph 2 lists the things the Supreme Court can do. This is their mandate. Listen to this. Controversies between two or more states. Well, I'll be darned. There it is, very clear. States having controversies. What do you mean they didn't have standing? There are states. Texas was a state. What do you mean it didn't have standing? That's just words to try to mix up everybody. So those guys, those people in the Supreme Court violated their responsibility to the Constitution. Now, it's not the first time. It's just one of 100 million times. But this was a crucial time. They violated that. They didn't want Trump to be president either. So they shut the door of the Justice Department to him. That's treasonous. So now we have those guys that are treasonous. I hope that 2 of them were not, but all 7 of them did agree to that item. All 9 of them did agree to that. 2 of them qualified it a little bit. So here we are. We have 9 guys. So let's assume what Trump is planning. He's planning. Now remember, I'm not saying anything that he's actually doing. Don't get me wrong and don't misquote me that I'm quoting Trump. I'm not. I'm quoting me. Okay?
Okay.
Trump has decided he's going to arrest the Supreme Court. And he lets the cat out of the bag 3 days before he does it. What would happen? The Supreme Court would go. They'd be gone. They'd be out of the country. Couldn't. He's lost his case.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't tell him, he goes in and says, oh, by the way, it'll go like this. Knock, knock, knock. By the way, you're under arrest for treason against the people of the United States. Come with us. And that's the first they knew. Didn't have time to run.
This is what they do. They say they fire people on Friday, right? A corporation, when they let you go, they wait till Friday and let you go at quitting time. That way, you have no way to cause trouble. I see what you're saying, but can I just get and say something about Texas?
Oh, that'd be good.
I'm from Texas. I was born in Texas, so what you see is what you get. But you can get the boy out of Texas, but can't get the Texas out of me. So let me share with you something. When the president came out of his seclusion, whatever it was, he flew down to Alamo, Texas, to talk to everybody, the nation, from the wall. And that was the first time he spoke after the so-called riot at the Capitol. So me being a good Texas boy, my ears perked up when I listened to him saying, I'm in Alamo, Texas. And let me just say, if you want to send a message strong to people from Texas, you go to any place called the Alamo and you start talking Alamo, you're saying now you're speaking our language. And for those that don't speak our language, I will be happy to share with you what Alamo means. Okay, I was born in the Baptist Hospital, San Antonio, Texas, 1 block away from the Alamo. And so it's been ingrained my whole life, the Alamo. But Alamo was the place where the Texans made their stand against Santa Anna and the army, invading army, for Texas liberty. And they made a choice. They said, we're going to stand and fight. We're going to fight to the death. We're not running away. No surrender. We're in this to win this, and we're in it to the end. Davy Crockett died at the Alamo. Davy Crockett was a congressman, by the way. You probably know that. But anyway, John Wayne made the movie. I didn't do them justice, but it's a good movie. But let me just say, when you talk Alamo to Texas, you're waving red meat in front of the dogs there. And we understand. I think there could have been a very strong message there when he was in Alamo, Texas, telling us about the wall, telling us about the people waiting on the other side of the wall just to get the green light, and how much he has done during these 4 years and how much more he can do. So that's my little dissertation. So please go ahead, Doctor.
Oh, I would take that as a real sign. Here we have here we have the Alamo. I lived in San Antonio for 7 years.
Oh, good.
They would never accept me because I didn't have 4 generations ahead of me. But nonetheless, I lived for 7 years in San Antonio. We went to the Alamo regularly. A couple of times, 3, 4 times a year, not every day. Anyway, we went there, and I watched the Texans. I watched what the Alamo meant. I've watched the movies about the Alamo. I understand exactly what that means. That means 187. Is that how many there were at the Alamo that last time? Facing an army of 5,000 or something like that?
Yeah, yes. They died there, by the way, too.
Oh, yes, everyone. And they had the opportunity to leave, too. People don't realize that. But Santa Anna gave them the opportunity to go. He didn't tell them he didn't make them stay there. They were prisoners. He would have let them go. They didn't go. All the civilians went. Okay? And they should have, of course. But the fight, the force that stayed there, it stayed there. They could have left. It stayed there. Those 187, put up a fight against 5,000. There was no chance. Come on, folks. There was no chance. And they knew it. They stayed anyway. Oh, I think today, could we find 10 that would do that?
I don't think so. But
we have a lot bigger population to choose from than Texas did. We had anyway. Yes, I remember that he was there, Davy Crockett, and that he had been a congressman. I remember that. I remember that well. I've watched these things. I paid attention. I knew a lot of this stuff before I moved to San Antonio. But that's a symbol of might. We will stay for our freedom or die. And they did.
Yeah, and they did it. And whenever you're in Texas and they say, remember the Alamo, they're talking our language. And
yes, I understand that language perfectly.
Yeah. So someone said, one of the great men said that those that are willing to exchange liberty for for safety are worthy of neither. Did I get that right?
You played really close. Yeah. People who give up security for give up freedom for security will have neither. That was Benjamin Franklin, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think it was Benjamin Franklin. So let me just say an observation. We have actually now, in the name of liberty, we have given up our freedom. In the name of our, let's say security, so-called, of our lives, to preserve our lives, we have put our lives ahead of our liberty and our freedom. And this is exactly what this health thing, sham deal, has done. But this is the complete opposite of the Texans, what they did. They gave their lives rather than lose their freedom.
Today, people are running around with masks on because they're afraid they might die from a disease that doesn't exist. They have said through the mask that they're willing to give up freedom and secure and safe for safety, for security. They've said that. That's a symbol that the mask means. I hope everyone that hears this will realize that the mask, wearing of the mask, when we're told by the government to wear a mask that violates our freedoms, and it does, by the way, every time you close the doors of your business because they told you to, it's violating the freedom. You willingly closed them. They didn't come and shut them down. You did. Okay, the churches, they didn't. No, the government didn't come and shut the churches down. The pastors did. Okay, so these people are giving up their freedom for security, and the bottom line is they will end up with neither.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let me get into another very, very serious subject. I don't want to get more serious than this, but the other one is we keep hearing about democracy. We're a democracy, and our democracy is in peril, and blah, 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 democracy. But from what I'm heard that democracy is nothing but mob rule. That is the majority rules, no matter what, right or wrong. And I just want to bring up a point. This is something that I think is worth thinking about. That why is it that the majority in our republic, constitutional republic, we actually, this is all about the rights of the individual, right? The individual. So
Yeah.
why is it if there's two of you telling one of me what to do, then I have to do it? That seems antithetical to our system, that the individual has his rights no matter how many people on the other side say this or that, or want to vote for this guy or that guy. So why have we twisted this whole business of democracy, freedom, and traded it for this lie of a mask and $600? And
We have been taught that in our schools. We have been taught that by custom. We're taught over and over again that the Revolutionary War was evil. We've been taught that America is evil because it had slaves. We've been taught over and over and over again that we're so evil. And we've been taught that. And patriotism is on its way out. When I said, could we find people to stand up like the guys at the Alamo stood up? It's because so many of our people nowadays do not understand what the dickens we have in our country. They do not know, because they think this has existed forever. They think that whatever existed today existed 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, and it will exist 1,000 years in the future, because all they can see is today. Anybody who doesn't know history is doomed to repeat it. That's a very valid statement. If you don't learn what's happened in the past, you will just do it over again. And it's happening right now in our own country. The media has been coerced. They've been bought out. They are liars. In 2019, we knew that they were reliable. They had a credibility rating of somewhere less than 20%. But as soon as this thing started with Hollywood depictions, everybody ran to the media, and now they believe them 100%. And if President Trump had said, let's say this in October, if in October President Trump had stood up and verbally said this campaign, this thing with the COVID-19 is a hoax, he would have lost half of his followers, because he said a hoax. It is a hoax. It is. But the media has scared us to death with Hollywood. The media has told us over and over and over again that we're going to die if we don't do this and this and this. They give us masks that are so porous. It's similar to this guy I know that built a chain link fence to keep the mosquitoes out. It's similar to that. That book you're holding up describes what the Constitution says and the basis of it, of the Declaration of Independence. Folks, we need that book. You know, every home that's interested in the Constitution should have that book. Okay? How many do? Around 10 or 15,000. How many people want the Constitution? How many people want Trump? Somewhere near 95 million voted for him. Well, those people, most of them, we don't even have 10% of those people. That would at least be 9,500,000. We don't even have 1% of them. That would at least be 950,000. We have less than 1/100% that have taken the time to learn the Constitution. We all say we know it. No, folks, you do not know it. I'm sorry to say that. You do not know the Constitution. I defy anybody to walk up to me and say, I know the Constitution. If you haven't read my book, I can turn you upside down and backwards and with questions that you can't answer. I mean, folks, there's so many things in our society today. The Supreme Court justices do not have a term for life. It is not constitutional. When they're confirmed by the Senate, there can be and should be a limit how long they're going to be there. The Constitution does not say anywhere that it's a term for life.
And actually, it's for good behavior, I think, is the term.
Good behavior, that's a lot of places. It's even different than that. Let me read you what it says. I want you to pay real close attention now. We're in Article 3 again. Article 3 of also, we're in the last sentence of Section 1, and nobody ever reads the section clear to the last sentence. This is what it says. They're talking about money. a compensation which shall not be diminished during their continuance in office. That says that after they have no continuance in office, their compensation can be diminished. That's what that says. It doesn't say there's a life term. It says you can't diminish their income while they're there. That implies that there'll be some time they're not going to be there. It does not say life term. You can't find it. In the 4,000 words of the doctrine of the Constitution, you can never find the word Supreme Court Justice life sentence, life term, life anything. Can't find it. It's not there. We've decided. Maybe it was the Supreme Court that decided that, and we all bought into it. I don't know where it came from. I really don't. But it isn't in the Constitution. And I can point out other paragraphs. The last sentence of the Fifth Amendment. I'll bet not one person in this audience can tell me what the last sentence of the fifth article is unless they've read my book. I'm sorry, it's not there. People don't know it. They don't understand. They haven't read it. The Supreme Court doesn't even know what the sixth article says in section 2. They don't even know what it says. Paragraph 1, section 2. They violated that 1796. They took land away from one of our citizens because of a treaty. That violates the Constitution, but they said it was okay. They hadn't even read it enough in 1796 to know that was a violation. Folks, nobody in this country, if they haven't read that book, knows the Constitution. Now that's a bold statement, but I sure can't find one. And nobody comes back and says, well, I know it, and then can stand up and really know it. I'd like to find one. That'd be neat. We'd have 2 of us then.
Well,
everybody who reads my book will know it.
Yeah, let me point out, I'm holding up your book again, and I'm not paid, or I'm not a paid endorser. I'm doing this freely, but this wonderful book written by the man you're listening to right now, Dr. Richard Proctor, actually goes line by line through the Constitution and does an expanded discussion of everything in it, and then the amendments. And it's understandable. That's the whole point. It's understandable, and it's something we need to know. And there's something I learned from you, and this is important also, is that the word Supreme Court is never capitalized in the written Constitution. It's not like some sacred, hallowed big. It's just it is the superior, and then the others are inferior. Is that right? They're just subordinate.
Exactly. That's exactly right. The word supreme is 7 times, never capitalized. Why? Well, let's just read what that says. Where does it show up? We're in Article 3 again. Well, it'd be neat to have read Article 3, wouldn't it? It says, the judicial power of the United States shall be invested in 1 little s Supreme Court and such little I inferior courts. That's a hierarchy of courts. That puts one above the other. Of what courts? Of the federal courts. The Supreme Court, little s, oh, by the way, in all my books, Supreme Court is never capitalized. Everything I write, it's never capitalized. The Supreme Court is just the top court among the federal courts and has nothing to say about a state court or a state constitution or a state law. Nothing, absolutely nothing can they say about a state law or a state in the Constitution or a state decision or a state anything. Have no rights whatsoever. So when Alabama was trying to fight the abortion issue, they took it to the Supreme Court. That's ridiculous. They had their own courts. They could do their own thing, and they don't have to pay any attention to any decision from the Supreme Court. They're not laws, by the way. They're decisions of 9 people. 9 people can't take away the rights of 300 million.
Thank you. That is very, very important. And may I interject something? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand common law, which is something I hope we can talk about if we have time. But the common law court, where a jury makes the decision, that is not reversible by anyone. There's no appealing that. Am I right with that? Are you familiar with that? But that's what I understand. The common law is not reversible by any court.
Well, I've never even thought about that. I can't say that. I wouldn't say it. Let me read what it says in Article 7, in the 7th Amendment on this subject. Let me see. No fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise examined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of common law.
Oops.
So that doesn't say it can't ever be examined again. It just can't be examined by other than courts of common law. So a Supreme Court in a state that's operating in common law, it says that could overrule a decision in a lesser court in the state in common law. Because it says that's exactly how it says it. Then, according to the rules of the common law. So it says it, I'll read it again. Shall be no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of common law. So if a Supreme Court is using the rules of common law and they, in that common law case, re-examine it, that means they could find it to be different. That's what that says.
Yeah.
I don't think that would ever happen. We don't have any common law courts in the state right now at all. We don't have, well, we do have some. We do. Whenever there's a jury, we have common law court.
Well,
but that's, just a minute, Ted, that's another point that's very important. What's the job of a jury?
Thank you. Yes.
What's the task? What is the most important task of a jury? The judge will say, you can now go to chamber and you can discuss that, but you can only discuss the facts of the case. You can only discuss the evidence that's been presented. That's garbage, folks. That's garbage. I'm not going to answer that. That's garbage. He can, whoops, I got to do something. We'll get all kinds of garbage here. There we go. Now we won't. Okay, anyway, so he can, they can. The judge says they can't do this, but they can. Their most important task of a jury is to decide if the law is constitutional.
Thank you. Yes.
That's their job.
Yes.
So let me say this. If I'm in Alabama, no, let's not say that. I don't want to say I was going to go the wrong direction. This will be an interesting one. Okay, I've been convicted by the court of speeding down the road in Utah. Mm-hmm. I'm going 105 miles an hour down the road, and I have been given a ticket. And I go to court, and the judge says, "Well, you were driving at 120 miles an hour in a speed limit area of only 30 miles an hour. Therefore, I'm going to fine you $1,000." Bang goes the gavel. No, sorry, that's not legal. That's not constitutional. That's a maritime court, folks. What's a maritime court? Maritime and admiralty courts. Their courts, their courts or their law, admiralty law and maritime law, is the law of the high seas, not the law of Iowa. No high seas in Iowa. Not the law of Iowa, not the law of Utah. We're nowhere close to a high sea. I mean, we're 4,000 feet above them. Here we go. What is the law of the high sea? The captain is in charge. There's got to be somebody in charge, and customarily, for whatever reason, the law of the sea is the captain is in charge. And if he tells you to go up the mast to unfurl that sail, because there's a storm and things being tossed sideways and upside down and backwards, and you don't go, he'll throw you in the brig. Now, he's judge, he assigned the project, he prosecuted you, he judged, and he sentenced you. That's his right. That's what the law of the sea is, admiralty law. That's what admiralty law and maritime law is.
Would you please keep going? Excuse me, I got to let my little doggy out, but please keep going. I'll be right back.
I'll keep you. Take care of the little doggy. Doggies are not. Anyway, so here we have a case here where you go to court. I'm going to go to court, Utah court. I violated the law. So I'm going to demand a jury because there's a judge there. I'm going to demand a jury trial. I'm going to say, where's the jury? I'm going home if there's no jury. And I'm not recognizing this because it's not common law as stipulated in the 7th Amendment. 7th Amendment, suits at common law. See, criminal law is the 6th Amendment. Common law or civil law is in the 7th Amendment. And all law except criminal law would be in the 7th Amendment. So I'm going to say this is common law. Doesn't say common law is in the 7th, in the 6th, but it does say you have to have a jury, and that's a big part of it. But it doesn't establish the amount of the injury or loss. But the common law does. And so it says, if the value, where the value in the controversy shall exceed $20. Okay, now I was driving down the road at 120 miles an hour, and there's only a 30-mile zone, and she's going to throw me in prison if I don't pay $1,000. I'm sorry, where's the jury? You can't do that. You don't have the authority. You're not here to adjudicate law. You're here to assume, make sure that the law that's been passed by Congress, by the legislature, proper laws by the legislature are properly done. That's your job. You don't have any other job. Where's the jury? They're the people who decide guilt or innocence. Where are they? They're not here. Well, then let's get one. Then we can come back together. So then the jury comes in, and here I am still 120 miles an hour in a 30-mile zone. So the jury says, yeah, that's a fact. There's no doubt about it. He did travel at 120 miles in a 30-mile zone. Now, is that law constitutional? Well, let's see. Let me see. The Constitution says, and we're going to read from the Constitution. In suits at common law, where their value in the controversy shall exceed $20, the right of the trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined. Okay, we already did that part. So let's just point out what's happened here. Was the law, did I violate, was there a $20 loss? Was there any loss of $20? No. Was there an injury? No. I was traveling down the road. But the law says you might have caused one. Oh, I see. I might have thought. It's a thought deal then, huh? It's a thing that where if I think about it, I've committed the sin, right? No, that's not true. If I take a hammer and I hit the desk over and over and over again, and I break the desk, have I violated a law? No. Even though I broke the desk, there's no law that says I can't break the desk, so I haven't violated a law. Now, if I pounded into somebody's skull, I violated his rights. That's a fact. In that instance, the law is constitutional. But my driving down the road at 90 miles an hour when there has been no incident whatsoever that's happened, might have happened, but it hasn't happened. So might have happened doesn't do the task. Might have is not admissible in court. I might have been born in China too. It's not admissible in court. What's admissible in court are facts and law, constitutional law. So the jury should look at that very, very first thing. The chief of the juror, what they call the chairman, whoever the right title is, he would say, well, now, guys, has there been a loss of $20, an injury, anything in this particular event? No, there hasn't been. Therefore, in accordance with Article 7, with the 7th Amendment, there is no constitutional law. Therefore, he's acquitted. Done. That's common law. The person that's sentencing me is not a captain of a ship. We're not on a ship where what I do in those cases might sink the ship. So in that case, I have violated the law because the law says that I must do exactly what the captain tells me to do. That's the law. That's maritime law, admiralty law, not common law. Nope, not criminal law. So maritime and admiralty law have no place on our shores, in our land. Now, one of the things that's important. Now we're going to go back to the third article. You see, we're going to go back to the third article. That's why you have to know this book. You have to know this just a little bit. When you go back to the third article, and we read in Article 3, Section 2, Paragraph 1, that the maritime, in all cases of admiralty or maritime jurisdiction, that's their judicial power. It comes down here and says, original jurisdiction. A Supreme Court will have original jurisdiction in all other cases before mentioned. Now, in all cases affecting ambassadors and other public ministers and councils, and those in which a state shall be a party, the Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction. In all other cases before mentioned, the Supreme Court shall have appellate jurisdiction, both as to law and fact, with such exceptions and under such regulations as the Congress. So what does appellate jurisdiction mean in that sentence? What courts can the Supreme Court appeal? Federal courts. What federal court can do? What can federal courts do? Only what's listed in these things. Only what's listed here. So they don't have any authority in maritime or admiralty law. They don't have any authority there. They only have authority in common law and criminal law. That's all they have. And that's what it says. All judicial power extend to all cases in law and equity arising under this Constitution, the laws of the United States, and treaties made, which shall be made under their authority. What's their authority? What's that sentence mean? That sentence means very clearly judicial power of the Supreme Court is law arising from the Constitution and the laws of the Constitution and treaties which are made in accordance with the authority of the Constitution. That's what that says. So no law that's not in authority with the Constitution is valid. The laws of the United States, I'm going to go to Article 6. It's a little clearer, but it says the same thing. Article 6, when we go right here. The Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuant thereof. Pursuant means what? In pursuant of the Constitution. So laws which are made in pursuant to the Constitution and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States. The authority of the United States are the laws of the United States and the Constitution of the United States. Those things shall be the supreme law of the land. That's what it says. Supreme law of the land starts with the Constitution. Laws made in accordance with the Constitution. Treaties and laws, treaties made in accordance with the laws and the Constitution are the supreme law of the land. And that's very clear if you just read the words. Therefore, admiralty law is not a part of the Constitution of our states, period. Admiralty law is only maritime law. Admiralty maritime law is only offshore in boats, big maritime boats, period. That's it. That's all. I'm done.
Wow, thank you. Now, I want to say that really brought around a lot of things to my mind. And this is little Candy. I want to introduce you to a little doggy, Candy. She's been very patient as we going through all of this. But Candy reminds me of something. She operates on natural law, okay? She doesn't understand constitutions and all this. She just has God-given sense, common sense. I believe common law actually does originate basically from common practices, common acceptable customs, and the nature, the laws of God in nature. And,
absolutely. You are absolutely right. That's where common law comes from. The laws of God, the laws of nature. And that's common sense also.
Common sense. This is what's missing, I think. And I've been learning just a little about some of the way they operate. And you have to direct where the court proceedings go. You actually have to recognize you have the right as one of we the people. And and I know it's a subject it's hard to get into, but about being the sovereign. But actually, in the common law, you are the sovereign, and actually, the judge has to take the role just as a referee, and you actually can make the law, and the jury will decide if your law is acceptable or not. But
yes, let's not get the sovereign stuff mixed up in here, because a lot of the people in the sovereign business are pretending like they're not accountable to anything, and that's not true.
Well, I'm not talking about the sovereign citizen. Now that is a contradiction, and that's really an impossibility to be a sovereign citizen. But what I want to lead up to is this subject here. This is about Hawaii, this book. And this gentleman that wrote this book is someone like yourself. He was a modern day businessman, Christian man, very versed in the Bible, the laws of God. And his name was Aaron Ardez. And it's important. And I'm not going to try to rewrite any constitutional thing. I just want to say here was the man that helped me. Actually, he's the man that introduced me to the color law, that term, through this book. And Aaron was a man that really took it at its word, the Constitution, our rights, the natural rights of man. And he wanted to actually find out if this was real. And so he actually did do it. He took it to court. He challenged it, exactly what you're talking about, this maritime law, admiralty law business. He challenged the judges on all of that. And now this is something here that's in his book. I just want to say what he goes by. But he came upon a very important thing that I think needs to be talked about. And he says that it's page 69 of his book. I'm just going to read it from his book. The President of the United States cannot create a state of the Union by resolution, executive order, or proclamation. The state of Hawaii was supposedly created by the following presidential proclamation, number 3309 of August 21st, 1959. The president can only create a limited corporation within the federal jurisdiction under Article 1, Title 8 of the American Constitution. Hawaii cannot be a lawful state of the American Union of States under constitutional law. Therefore, it can only be a limited corporation. Okay, so I'm living in a place that is totally a rogue actor by the Constitution. And the state of Alaska was also brought in on the same way. But if you have your Constitution handy, is there a way you can review for us what does the Constitution say about how new states are supposed to really be brought in to the Union and ways that they are not supposed to be brought in?
Are you asking me a question?
Did I lose you? Yeah, did I lose you? Yeah.
Because I've been looking, I'm not, I hate to say this, but I am not absolutely chapter and verse able to talk about that. I know it's here, but I don't know where it is. And I was trying to find it while you were talking, and I cannot find it. It'll be in Article 1, I think, because that's
Article 1, Section 8, I think, paragraph 8. It's apparently what he's quoting. But let me go on while you're doing that.
I don't think it's in Section 8.
Okay, I don't know. It's just got some reference here.
I don't think so.
Well, I don't know what this character means here, but what he goes on to say. No, but I want to say this. All right, I have a pastor friend of mine. He's 81 years young, but he knew Aaron Artes. Aaron has passed away about 10, 15 years ago. But he knew Aaron Artes. He went to court with Aaron Artes. He saw him operate in the courts, and he was real. The judges actually did listen to him and respected what he said. But Aaron did not have a driver's license. He did not have registration for his car. He didn't have any of these statutes that are imposed on people. And he had a reason for not having them. But this is only because of the Constitution. But he never lost a case. I just want to say his book has all the cases. He never was fined or lost in any of these cases. So there's something here. There's something about this, not about our statehood, but our standing that statutory law and common law are very different things. And we as individuals, we the people, we have the inalienable right. We have the right to freely travel, which has certainly been squashed. We have these things. So, this is something important. And I just, Hawaii, if it's not a state, it's time that we find out if it's not a state, because we have a president, former president, claiming he's a citizen by being born in Hawaii. And he may again be the president, but effectively he is now in his third term with this new administration, if they do come in. And what about Kamala Harris? We talked about it before, but what about her as her being a citizen or eligible for being the president.
But, you know, the requirement for being a president is to be a natural-born citizen. A natural-born citizen is defined as someone who is born in this country and with parents of jurisdiction of this country. That's the 14th Amendment. So it says there very clearly. It says very clearly in the 14th Amendment. I like to read these things because people need to know that we actually know what we're talking about. Here we are, 14th Amendment. All persons born, I'm going to leave out the word or naturalized because that's not what we're talking about. All persons born in the United States and, oh, there's an and. Those are very crucial words, and. What does and mean? And subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. So now let's think about that now. And, here's a baby in arms, 1 day old. How's the jurisdiction of that baby established? By where she was born? He was born? No, you got to have another and there. You got to have jurisdiction. Jurisdiction isn't established by where you're born. In this case, it must be established by the parents' jurisdiction. And that's exactly how it's been found by the Congress over these 200 years, okay? The only discussion about whether or not parents is whether or not they have to have two or one. But sometimes they said two and sometimes they said one. But let's not have, you can't have less than one parent, okay? There are only two, so you can't have less than one. Anyway, so one parent must be a citizen of the United States. That parent can be a naturalized citizen, that's all right. They have to be a citizen of the United States, one of them. So since a person born, I was born in Pennsylvania of two parents who were citizens. Therefore, I'm a citizen. Okay. That young lady Harris was born of two parents in San Francisco, neither of which were citizens. They were diplomatic folks here from their countries. I understand them to be from India and Jamaica. Now, I don't know that for positive, but I know that they were citizens of this country. Therefore, she is not a citizen either, because the and says you got to have jurisdiction, and jurisdiction for a baby is the jurisdiction of the parents. Done. She's not a citizen. We don't even need to talk about whether she's natural born or not. She's not a citizen at all. Not at all.
So also looking at Article 2, the Constitution, it says, no person except a natural born citizen or a citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of this Constitution shall be eligible to the office of president. And of course, anybody being vice president who's not eligible, they can't be either one if they're not eligible, to meet the president requirement, presidential.
Yeah, that's in another spot where it says vice president has to have the qualifications of the president.
Yes, right. So here we're faced with another big dilemma. They're trying to impeach the president, over, straining it at a gnat and a thread and all these things, a camel's hair, but they can grossly violate bringing a non-citizen and elevate them to the highest office in the land. And actually, they haven't even lived in America, like for half their life. They lived in Canada, were raised in Canada.
If you look a little bit closer again, you will find in Article 1, Section 3, the qualifications to be a senator. Now, it says no person shall be a senator who is not 30 years old and 9 years a citizen. Well, she hasn't been a citizen even 1 year, so she's not eligible for Congress either. In Section 2, it says exactly the same thing about representatives. 7 years a citizen. Well, not a citizen, you're not even eligible to be a representative. Not even eligible for any of these offices.
Well, I see also that senators, as you have well rehearsed, and I hope you will also bring it again to us, Senators were not originally supposed to be elected by popular vote because there was a method to this madness that the Congress was the people's house and they're elected by the people, but the Senate is elected a different way for a different purpose.
Right.
And this is important. If you could remind us, please.
You see, let's go back to the convention, the Philadelphia Convention again in 1787. Here we've got this convention. We've got rival groups. We've got people talking about the people themselves and their authority, and that's the House. Who's the other group that has organized the Constitution? The people, and the other group is the Senate, the states. The states are the other people. The state, they have autonomy. They're an organization. They're a real group. They're composed of citizens, but they are an entity of their own. So we have a state that's an entity, and we have people that's an entity. Those are the two powers that created the Constitution. Now we have a situation in the convention. The states, they all wanted to be represented by someone in the federal government. When the federal government was organized, they wanted to have a representative. They wanted to have someone who will speak up for their rights. That's the senator. Speak up for the rights of the state. Now the people want to have somebody who will speak up for their rights. That's the representative. The representative speaks up for the rights of the people. The senators spoke up for the rights of the state. How is it determined whether you're speaking up for the rights of anybody? These people are looking for the rights. They have to select them and put them in office. That determines their right. Their right to select a person, put them in office. That's their place. The Senate, senators, the states had the right to select or appoint for the senators. So that was how the balance of power occurred. Senators had a right for the states, and the people had a right through the representative. Now, in 17, in violation of the Constitution itself, the Constitution itself, guys, the senators, people decided we wanted the senators to be popular vote. All of a sudden, now the states had no representation anymore. Throw them under the bus. People had two representatives in the Senate and in the House. Nobody had a representative in the Senate. And right here, the very last line of the 5th article, the very last line says, no state without its consent shall be deprived of its equal suffrage in the Senate. And suffrage means voting power. So no state cannot have its voting power in the Senate. It says that. It says it without its consent. No state would give its consent. What happened? They put this amendment out, and they talked the people through wordsmithing and lying and cheating and stealing into giving up the state's representation in the Senate. Now, yeah, so in the government. So what we had, I listened. I was doing some stuff, and I was at the State House during the legislative period of the state of Utah. And I listened to senators talking among themselves, saying, how can we get our power back in the federal government? How can we do that? Oh, we're going to have to pass an amendment. How are we going to get our power back? We've got to revoke the 17th Amendment. How do we get our power back? Folks, just nullify the blooming 17th Amendment in your state because it isn't in accordance with the Constitution. Constitution says you have to give your consent to give up your right, and you didn't. Here in Utah, that's really true. We did not give up our consent, neither did Delaware, till way after the ratification of this article, that amendment. Folks, we are being led down the road day by day by people who want to cheat and steal and lie to us day by day, every day. And they take us out by giving us ideas about an amendment. The 16th Amendment, do you know how that was passed? They came to all the people and they said, if you pass this, we're going to take money from the rich to support the government. And they got to have $100,000 or more in wealth. And that's all. You guys don't make $100,000. This was in 1916, of course. 13. They didn't have $100,000. So you don't have to worry. Only the people with $100,000 will be bothered. It'll only be 3%. No big deal. Don't worry about it. What's 3% of these people? And we passed it with that stupid wordsmithing. Now, before the year was out, before the first year was out, the level of 100,000 was dropped way down, and the price of and the 7% went up, the 3% went to 7, and the little guy in the street was now paying government taxes that he didn't think he was going to get stuck with, because the people said, the wordsmithers said, don't worry about it. It won't ever affect you. It only took 12 months.
And here it's still today. But let me back up 1 second. All right. Since Senate is not the original recipe of Senate, without their consent of the states, lost their representation. Therefore, the impeachment effort against the president should not be valid, right?
Right.
That should, all of it is invalid. It's a kangaroo court.
In fact, everything the Senate does is invalid.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much.
We look at the senators as the chief guys. We look at the senators as being the chief guys in the Congress. Hey, they're not even eligible to be there. We only have one house in Congress that's legal.
And that's not being run actually very, very legally either.
No,
but money seems to have corrupted everybody, all the good, better natures of everyone. But again, just back here, the 12th Amendment, it ends up saying that no person constitutionally ineligible to the office of president shall be eligible to that of vice president of the United States.
Yep.
Very, very clear.
Very clear.
Now, there's a little matter that nobody wants to talk about much, but that's that former Senator Biden, we call him former Senator Biden, he received many deals, sweetheart business deals, and was greatly enriched through his connections working for the government. Then he became vice president. He became even more greatly enriched through business deals for his son, benefiting his son, which he claimed he had no knowledge of at all. And but there's a portion here of the Constitution that actually addresses this, and I never heard any of the wise sage news media talking about it. But it's Article 1, actually the last paragraph of Article 1, and it says that talks about titles of nobility and all of that, or cannot be granted by the United States. No person holding any office of profit or trust under them shall, without the consent of the Congress, except of any present, emolument, office, or title of any kind whatever from any king, prince, or foreign state. Well, that sounds like that kind of really puts the kibosh on Hunter Biden's enterprises in Ukraine, Russia, China, and Joe Biden, the vice president, getting very rich from that. I hear he has a big luxury yacht now, as well as his luxury mansions that they never show on TV. Joe Biden, but I guess Dr. Jill Biden must be a doctor of economics. Did she go to Provis Institute?
It's very interesting about this stuff about how much money these people make. It's interesting. I don't remember where I heard this or read it, but the Senate said this: a person entering as a millionaire and finishing as a millionaire has to be a criminal. And finishing as 100 millionaire has to be a criminal. You can never make that kind of money being a honest senator or House representative or president or vice president or cabinet maker or anything in the government offices. If you come in and just barely able to get there, you're not gonna leave as $100 million winner without being a criminal. That's what he said.
Well, they have $1.5 billion deal, just from China given to his son, but that's not of interest to anybody. But I don't know. I don't know why money has become totally the corrupting influence. It seems that anybody who has the most money rules. I guess that's the golden rule.
Yep, that's
And
who has the gold rule.
that's Baron Rothschild said that. Give me control of the money, and I care not who writes the laws.
That's right.
So you have some great books also. The Liberty series is part of your study course at Provis Institute. 6-volume series, 2,200 pages. You also have another book called Bathroom Economics. I think I have it in my bathroom, but it's a great book. And I love to hear you talk about money. Money is one of your other fields. Would you please tell us about money? Just give us a little bit of what money is now, and how is it money printed out of thin air? How does that affect the economy?
Well, let's center in what you're saying. I think what you're asking me to center on is inflation.
Yes, exactly.
How do the prices reflect money? You guys have heard about the word supply and demand?
Yes.
There's lots of supply of something like sand. It isn't worth very much. Or there's a little bit of supply of something like diamonds. It's worth a lot. Now, that's a very easily understood comparison. And by the way, every person living understands that something that has a lot of something is worth nearly as much as something that has one of something. Okay? Everybody knows that. It's in your makeup. You all know that. So, supply and demand money is affected by supply and demand also, just the same way. Here's an auctioneer. I'm going to a little story here. Here's an auctioneer. There's an auction being held. You go into this auction, and you've got your eyes on a particular item. Let's call it number 12. Number 12th item they're going to auction. You got your eye. You want that item. Now, when you walk in the door, you're told that you can't bid with anything except money in your pocket. Can't use checks, can't use credit cards. You can only bid money in your pocket, nothing else. Okay? So you walk in and you check, you have $345.15. I'm going to write that down so I won't forget it. $345.15. That's how much you have. So you get in there, you don't bid on anything else because you do want to have that number 12. So now number 12 comes in and you bid for number 12, $10, and somebody else does it. The price gets up to $300. You still really want it. It gets up to $340. You still want it. It goes to $350. You've lost it. And it goes to $400. You've lost it. That's disheartening. I want to have that. So, and as you're looking around the room, you're disheartened. You notice there's a guy in the back of the room doing something. Everybody's going back and seeing him. So you're curious. You go back and see what this guy's doing. He's handing out $100 bills. He'll give you 10 of them. Wow. So now you go back. Now you have $1,345.15. Oh boy. So now you start bidding on that 12th item again, because the bidding wasn't done yet when you went back to see the guy. It was still going. So you went, and the bidding is now at 900. Now it's at 12. Now it's at 14. Oh, you're looking around for the guy again. There he is. So you go by and get another 10 $100 bills. Now you have $2,345 cash. And the bids go and go and go and go and go. And now it's up to 3,000. Now it's up to 4,000. Now it's up to 5,000. How is the bid getting so high? Because the guy in the back of the room is doing what? Putting more money in the room. Putting money in the room. So the room's money is growing. Is the value of the item number 12 changing? No. The value of the money is changing. That's inflation. When the value of money decreases, prices go up because it takes more money to buy the same thing. So if you want to go out and buy a loaf of bread and it costs 50 cents, you're tickled to death because you can buy that for 50 cents. You go back in 2 years and now it costs $1.50. That's because enough money has been placed in the economy to raise the price of bread to $1.50. Now that's what inflation is. The formula in economics, and you don't care about this, but I'll just say it anyway. MV equals PT. That's the formula. Well, along came John Maynard Keynes, and he says that's too simple. People can tell what money's happening. They can see inflation. That's too simple. So he wrote a formula that can't be figured out in calculus. I've taken calculus. I have no idea what that formula says. Neither does anybody else. Now, that's supposed to tell us what the value of money is. Bottom line, the value of money is determined by how much money there is. MV equals PT. And in an equation, you can move the figures around so it'll say M times V divided by T equals P. So the price is M times VT. So if you make VT is 1, M, the supply of money, equals P. So if the supply goes up, the prices go up. If the money supply goes down, the prices go down. It goes both directions. Going down causes a depression. Going up causes inflation. Those are the two instances. That's what money is. Money is supply and demand. So if you see prices going up, it's because the government's printing or borrowing more money than it has, therefore introducing more money into our economy. So every time the government borrows from the Federal Reserve doesn't go down in its coffers and get the money. It prints it in the back room. Printing press enters it. So the Federal Reserve has then created $1 billion. That's new money. The government spends it. That's new money in the economy. Now let's look at what's happened recently. When Trump started in the office of president, I think the national debt was somewhere around 20 trillion. I'm not positive about that now. I haven't looked it up recently. Now it's on to 28 trillion. Why? Not because Trump has done a lot of bad things. It's because we've been borrowing so much to do so much. I.e., how much money did we recently borrow just to pay everybody $1,200? Every person $1,200? My wife and I each got $1,200, so that's $2,400. Everybody in the country got it. Inflation began.
By the way, do you know how much that costs each person, man and woman and child? Someone looked it up. They worked it out. $83,000 a piece. $83,000 to get the 1,200.
Yeah, that'll be right. That'll be right. The national debt is huge. You have no idea about all the stuff is in the national debt and all the other commitments of government where we're behind and don't have the money to pay because we've made commitments we can't pay for. But the bottom line, money goes up and down based on the supply of it. The value goes up and down. Now let's look at what it says here in the Constitution. Article 1, Section 8, big important section. It says, Section 8, Article 1, Paragraph 5, to coin money, regulate the value of money. All right, now, so the government's supposed to print the money, and that's the Treasury Department. So money is printed is Treasury Department. The value is determined by the money that there is. And when the government borrows from the Federal Reserve and the Federal Reserve just creates it, then that creates more money and the value goes down. So the Federal Reserve is controlling the value of our money. Did you hear that sentence? Congress is not. The Constitution is not. The Federal Reserve, a private organization controlled by European financiers, is determining the value of our money. They determine the value of the money, nobody else. That's what Rothschild meant. He can control the money just because he controls the value of it. And there you have it. And what happens with he can create money. And the Federal Reserve can go to a congressman and say, hey, I got some money, I'll give you, if you'll do this for me. And they do and get it. That's how people start Congress on a shoestring and finish Congress as multimillionaires. That's how it's done, guys. That's how it's done. That's money. Direct proportion, money, supply and demand, perfectly aligned.
Well, for the benefit of us Texans and Hawaiians are not quite good at this formula. I was reading in your book, one of your books, Liberty Book, about the shells, the man on the island with the seashells, and there was 1,000 seashells.
Yep.
And that was then the price for a coconut was 2 seashells.
Right.
And would you continue with that? Because that is easier to understand.
Okay, then let's do that. The auction, I think the auction is the easiest, but this is easy too. Also, we have an island here. This island is isolated. You know, like in the days when Hawaiians lived on their island and the white guy hadn't shown up yet. So he's isolated, okay? We're going to isolate. It's like that. Not that era, but it's like that. So here we have an island that's isolated. And they use white shells because they're so rare. I mean, white shells are really rare. So they use white shells. They got to be pure white, too. They can't be mixed up at all. White shells. So you're going to find white shells. And that's what they use for money. And currently, the population of the island is, let's say it's 10,000 people. Okay, and write that number down. I got to keep track of these things. 10,000 people. Okay, now we have enough shells. Now let's just say it's 500 people. Get the key simpler. We have 500 people. We have 1,000 shells on the island. 1,000. And that's enough money, because you don't need very much. That's enough money for everybody to be smooth and easy. The prices to all stay the same. 1,000 shells, population of 500. 1,000 shells. Now, a couple of guys are very industrious, and they're out swimming. They're not snorkeling, you don't have those things, but they're out swimming in the deep, and they find a cache of 1,000 shells. They find a pile of 1,000 pure white shells down here in this spot in the lagoon that nobody knows about. And they don't tell anybody about it either. So they gather these white shells. It's 1,000 of them. And they go home, they have all these shells. They keep them buried in the back room underneath the mat. And whenever they want to buy something, they go out and get one of those shells, or 2 of those shells, or 10 of those shells. Over time, coconuts, which used to cost two shells, and everything else, whatever else, just the coconuts, though, they cost 2 shells. Well, we had 1,000, they cost 2 shells. As the new shells come into effect, people will be more money to buy shells. So I'm going to go down, and the guy's going to say, well, I only got 1 shell, and that person's offering me 2. But you say you want it. What do you think? I'll give you 3 shells for it. All of a sudden, the price of coconuts is 3 shells, because this guy has 1,000 shells, and that's double the money supply. So eventually, after all those 1,000 are out, everything's going to double in price, because the 1,000 shells are now 2,000. Population stayed the same, 500. It's 2,000 shells now instead of 1,000. So the money doubles it. The price of everything doubles it. In price, the value is 50% of what it was.
So the coconut was 2 shells before, and then these guys brought in all these others, and now they give 4 shells for a coconut. So now that is the going price. The market price is 4 shell. So this really, now for us in Hawaii, we can latch on to this concept. So now the great white father in Washington, or call him that or whatever, presses the button, and out comes all these more shells, an infinite number of shells they could give us. Then that's going to affect our price of our coconuts. Then
every time they put those shells in, will affect the price of the coconut. Yeah.
So now to give everybody 600 shells, and now it's going to be 2,000 shells, and that definitely adds more shells to the supply. They're not taking any shells away when
That's right. That's right.
Okay. So
that's why that formula that I mentioned earlier, M equals P. The amount of M, which is the money supply, the number of shells, equals P, which is the price. And the more shells they are, the higher the prices go.
Well, this has been, a very wonderful visit, a free seminar, actually, like a free course here from Dr. Proctor, Dean of the Provis Institute and coach of their basketball team. And I think
some of the guys are too tall. I can't even shake hands with them.
Well,
they walk over.
You're good. But I think we're going to run out of time here pretty soon. So just to get back to reality here today, it appears that we have someone who is trying to take over the reins of our government. They may not even be alive, but certainly can't pass the 25th Amendment test. But it seems that the certain group want him in anyway at any cost. But this seems like Venezuela 2.0. It seems like we're actually ending up exactly like Venezuela. And I remember them from the 70s. I used to fly airplanes down there, and they were full of luxury jets. They were the Saudi Arabia of the Caribbean, Venezuela, because they had oil. They had money. Now they're eating their own shoes and belts, and they have nothing. And so why is it that they went wrong, and what is it we're going to benefit? Or you think we're going to benefit if we become Venezuela 2.0? And how can we survive that way?
I don't have enough salt to make my shoes good enough tasting. You guys, this happens every time. Socialism is the key. When socialism becomes rampant, you and I will become slaves to the government that has socialism eventually. Sometimes it just takes a little while. Sometimes it takes years, but it always happens. It always happens. We've been going down the socialism path a long time. Now we're getting ready, or they're getting ready to inaugurate a guy who has no intent whatsoever of living the Constitution. He's announced it. He's going to make mandatory masks that don't do anything, masks that don't have anything, mandatory masks. What that really means, he's making mandatory slaves of everybody. And that's what dictators do. We have a constitution. The only purpose of this constitution is to tie the hands of government so they cannot walk over the top of us. And we are now getting ready to bring in some people whose only goal is to walk over the top of us and destroy our lives in the United States. And it will also permeate the entire world because we're the only country that has the pure democracy, the pure republic. I said the word democracy and it's wrong. We don't. I pledge allegiance to the democracy or to the flag and the democracy for which it stands. Republic. Republic means representative. It does not mean two wolves, one sheep deciding what's for dinner. Republic is a true government. Democracy is rule of the majority, always, no matter what the minority has. The minority may be 100% correct, but the majority will shoot them all if he wants to. And that's where we're headed. Happened in Russia, happened in Cuba, happened all over in China, happened all over the world, over and over and over again. And that's getting ready to be rolled out in our country right now because the people who won it cheated at the election, and we are not willing. We, the people, are not willing to take it back or have not been willing to take it back. Folks, we're in deep kimchi. That's a very bad thing to be in deep into, by the way. It stinks horribly. We're in deep kimchi because we will not learn and study and know what the Constitution says. We will not learn and study and know what history is. We just refuse to look after ourselves. As long as we can see the boob tube and watch this football game or whatever, we're happy. Well, you won't be happy very soon. If that guy takes office and Trump steps aside or doesn't do anything, you won't be happy very long. This summer will be the end. I don't believe it can get past September.
So remember the Alamo, folks. Remember the Alamo. And, our very wise and sage guest, Dr. Proctor, this is his book, Saving the Constitution. And it's a very modest, I think $20 includes the postage and shipping. You can get.
By the way, I want to mention something that's quite important.
Yes.
This book, Saving the Constitution, that you just held up, will be one of the first books they'll ban so you can't have it. If this Wednesday turns out the wrong way, the bad way, that book will be banned very, very quickly. So if you think you might want to have it, even if there's an inkling, even if it's just better said, well, maybe someday, even if there's an inkling, get it now because it may not be available in a week. Well, it'll still be available in a week. They won't do it that fast, but they will take it out very quickly. I've got lots of books coming. I've got lots of books on order. I still have books here at the house. Get an order in. You can get them on Bathroom Economics. You can get them at my school website, Provis Institute of Political Economics. You can get it there. That provisinstitute.com is the website. You can get them in those locations if you want to. And you can get them at your bookstore. But here's the problem. If you go to the bookstore, they've got to get them from me, and I haven't given them to them yet. So they're a slow way to get them. You can get them from me quickly if you just ask for them.
Right. And I will put the link to your website and all the information on this video. And I think we just, we need to pray We need to pray for our nation, for our country. 2 more days. This is going to all be on the line. It is on the line. And, many people have invested everything that they had to get us to this point of America and our freedom. And let's don't blow it now. And I just would like to ask you if you would join me in a prayer here, real short prayer, Dr. Proctor, that
Absolutely.
I think is the best way to close this. And I hope we'll get together maybe next week and we can rejoice about the good outcome that we're going to see. But you are saying, in closing, you are saying there is hope. There is a very strong likelihood that the Constitution will reign, and that our freedom will be preserved, and that our president will stay on 4 more years, Donald Trump. You say that's a good chance of that.
Yes, I say that's a good chance. Yeah,
well,
very good chance. I believe 90%. That's what I believe. Personally.
Amen. Yeah. Well, that's good enough for me. And it's just, we ask, Almighty God, we ask right now your blessing on our nation, on every viewer here. They would take these words to heart. The wisdom of Dr. Proctor, he's invested so many years, so much study, and so much love he has for this country. Father, we know you love this country. You created this country for a destiny. And we believe that destiny will survive. That destiny is not finished, and it will survive. And we pray for your help, for your intervention, and for your power to see us through, to bring us through to the sunrise. We ask in the name of our Savior and Lord Jesus. Thank you, Father.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen. So you can see behind me, you can see the sun. I'm going to call it a sunrise. And thank you, Dr. Proctor, for giving us your time. And let's get together and do it again, please. It's very
soon. Yes, we can. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you all for watching. And peace, love, aloha from Hawaii. Geronimo out.